What's up? It's been a minute. Now, without making any excuses, let's get right down to it. Now, Illustrator, as a vector art application, isn't exactly known for working with photos, but it can and it does a pretty good job. So, today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a logo shape, add in a real world environment, and then lay that piece down on a cylindrical shape. It's not tough at all. As a matter of fact, all you need to know is some fundamentals of 3D, a little bit of blur, and a little bit of opacity, and I think we're good to go. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time and let's get started. All right, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. Our new file will have a width of 1,000 points, a height of 1,000 points, a single artboard, and since we're building to screen, we're going to use the RGB color mode. Let's go ahead and create. All right, before we get started, I want to mention that we're using the Essentials Classic workspace. To switch on over to the Essentials Classic workspace, all you need to do is go to the top right-hand corner, select Switch Workspace, and select Essentials Classic. We use Essentials Classic because it shows the most tools and makes everything easiest to access. With that being said, use the workspace that you want to use. We'll make sure you get from point A to point E either way. Next thing I want to mention is that we are using Smart Guides. To switch on over to Smart Guides, all you need to do is go to View, Smart Guides, or select Control U. As you can see already, we're using the bottom center of the page to highlight hotkey recommendations, tips and tricks, and key command recommendations. Now, with that in mind, we're building this piece on a PC. If you're using a Mac or Apple device, anytime you see the Control key, select Command instead. Again, for Apple, Command equals Control. Let's get on with it. First thing we're going to do is we are going to import our image. While we do that, let's go ahead and select File, Place, and then seek out that downloaded image. Select coffee.jpg. Let's go ahead and select Place. We'll click anywhere on our artboard, and then let's go ahead and position it. We're going to position it using our Align tool. With Essentials Classic, all you need to do is go to your top bar, select Horizontal Align Center, then Vertical Align Center right there. If you can't see your Align tool, piece of cake, all you need to do is go to Window, Align, or select Shift F7. Now that we've got our piece centered on the page, all we need to do is let's go ahead and scale it. I'll double click on my scale tool on our left toolbar, and let's scale it down to 70%. If you're using your own image, scale to whatever size works best for you. Now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and grab our selection tool, deselect our image, and then let's talk about what we're going to do next. Notice that our cup is a conical shape. That means the width on the bottom part of the cup, for the most part, is going to be the same width on the top part of the cup. That's going to make things pretty easy for us. All we need to do is let's go ahead and grab our rectangle tool, and then we're going to draw half of the 2D shape that we are going to build. In this case, we're going to go to the top right-hand corner of our cup right here. Let's click and drag down, and let's create half of the surface that we want to draw on or that we want to build on. That's close enough right there. Next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and change the color of our piece. Let's select our stroke. Let's go ahead and make it transparent. And then let's go ahead and double click on our fill, and let's change our fill to a bright red. Let's go ahead and click OK. Now our color really doesn't make a difference since our shape is not going to be visible. We want to see it in a contrasting color from the shape behind it to make sure that we can work with it most effectively. Next thing we're going to do, speaking of being able to see the shape behind it, let's go ahead and open our transparency window, and let's change our opacity from 100% to 50%. If you don't see your transparency window, all you need to do is select Window, scroll down until you see transparency, and then select that or select Shift Control F10. Let's go ahead and deselect. Let's go ahead and close our transparency window as we don't need it right now. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead and make this 2D shape a 3D shape. First thing we're going to do with our piece still selected is we're going to select Effect, 3D and Materials, 3D Classic, and let's select Revolve. Notice right away we've got that revolution around our shape. That's a perfect start. Now let's go to the basics. First thing we're going to do is we're going to select for position, front. That's going to give us that perfect forward view that we can start with. Next thing we want to do is we want to rotate it horizontally so that we can start seeing the top of our shape, and we want the top of our shape to match the top of the cup. Let's go. We'll select it, and then we'll use our directional keys to arrow down until we can see the top of our shape. You can see it right there. Let's keep arrowing down until we get the top of the shape to match the top of our cup. That looks pretty good right there. However, you'll notice that the bottom of our shape does not match the bottom of the cup. The reason is because any shape has perspective attached to it. So what we're going to do next is let's go to the perspective, and then let's increase that perspective until we get the shape looking how we want it to look. Let's go. Notice that around 40%, we've got the sides looking right. However, notice that the top, not quite. So let's go back up to our top, and let's go ahead and decrease the perspective. That's looking pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and reduce our perspective to see if we can get the shape looking right on the bottom and sides as well. That looks pretty good. Note that the top is looking right, and the bottom of our new shape matches the bottom of the cup. Let's go ahead and edit our shape the way we're going to do that. Let's go ahead and click OK, and then let's grab our direct selection tool. Let's deselect our shape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to edit our shape with the direct selection tool by just selecting parts of our shape. This is where Smart Guides comes in. I'm going to hover over and select the left part of our rectangle. Let's arrow it to the right. That's looking pretty good. Let's do the same thing with the right side of our rectangle. We'll click off it. We'll find it again with Smart Guides, and then let's arrow to the left slightly. Let's deselect. Notice our shape closely matches our cup. However, it's just slightly off to the right. Let's go ahead and grab our selection tool. We'll select our shape, and let's arrow it to the left until we get that match right there. Now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and deselect our shape and appreciate our work. Now we can always continue to edit from here. However, we are close enough. Let's go ahead and import our shape. Notice I brought my shape in from the outside source. Again, if you want any of these shapes, just take a look at the link below or in our video description. Now that we've got our file, we've got to do a couple things. The first thing we need to do is convert our vector shape to a raster shape. The reason we do this is to avoid any shape breakdown that naturally occurs in the conversion to a 3D shape. The way we do that, let's go to Object, Rasterize, and when our rasterize window comes up, we're going to keep the resolution at high. Let's go ahead and change our background from white to transparent. We want to be able to see the object in and around it. And then we're going to keep everything else the same. Let's go ahead and click OK. Notice right away our shape loses its vector lines. That means it has become a raster file. Next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and open up our symbols window. And then let's go ahead and grab our shape and drag it into our symbols. When the symbol options window comes up, let's go ahead and name our shape. We'll call it logo. And then let's change our export type from movie clip to graphic. Let's make sure our symbol is a static symbol, and let's go ahead and click OK. Notice that in the symbols window, our logo shape is now located. If you hover over it, notice that it says logo right there. Go ahead and deselect our shape, and there you go. One more thing, we don't need our imported shape anymore as it's in our symbols. So let's go ahead and select backspace or delete, and let's get rid of it. Now that we've got everything set and sorted, let's go ahead and get rid of the transparency of our piece. We don't need it anymore. That'll make it easier for us to map the art. So with our shape selected, all we need to do is let's go ahead and select our transparency window. Let's change our opacity from 50% to 100%. And then let's go ahead and open up our appearance window. Now, if you don't have the appearance window available, all you need to do is go to Window, Appearance, or select Shift F6. Go ahead and deselect. Once our appearance window is open, let's go ahead and select our 3D Revolve Classic. Wait for the 3D Revolve Options window to open, and let's go ahead and select Map Art. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to seek out the surface where we're going to map our art. We're going to ignore the bottom. Let's go ahead and select our second surface. We're going to ignore the top, and then we'll go to our third surface, and you can see on screen that our shape is mapped right there. Next thing we want to do is let's go to Symbol, and let's select our imported symbol, logo. Notice right away when we select it, you can see part of the logo on our 3D shape. Let's go ahead and grab it, and let's drag it to make it on the visible area right there. Right away that works, but there's a couple things going on. First of all, our logo is too big. So how do we scale it? All we need to do is go to the bottom left-hand corner or any corner of the shape. Let's hold our shift key to maintain symmetry. And let's drag in just a little bit. That probably works right there. And then let's center our shape once again as we see fit. With this cup, I've noticed that the handle is in the left front of the cup, so I don't want to center it perfectly. Instead, I want to drag it off to the right just a little bit to make it look like it's centered on the shape the way that I want it centered. That works pretty well right there. Perhaps I'll drag it up just a little bit higher. I like that right there. Now let's make it look real. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select invisible geometry. That's going to hide our geometry and show our artwork on the cup. And the next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and select shade artwork. Right away, you can see our artwork is shaded on our piece. Let's go ahead and select OK. Now that we've got our piece there, let's go ahead and make some changes. First thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and select More Options. In the More Options menu, we've got Surface. Now we've got various surfaces that we can select from, including wireframe, no shading, diffuse shading, and plastic shading. Wireframe and no shading, they just show your piece without any shading. That can work, and that might work best for a purpose that you seek. In this case, I want to maintain as much flexibility as I can. So I'm going to ignore that and no shading, and I'll select one of the shading elements. If I select diffuse shadings, I've got less options that I can play with. If I want even more settings, I can go ahead and select plastic shading. This gives me the most options. In this case, let's keep it a little bit more simple. Let's go ahead and select diffuse shading, and let's go ahead and start our work. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the direction of my shading. Notice in the cup, the shading is in the left center of our cup. So I'm going to drag my light source over to the left center, about just like that. That looks good right there. And notice where my light hits. That looks a lot better. Next thing I want to do is I want to increase the amount of ambient light from 50% to something a little bit higher. Let's go ahead and click on that. And then let's drag this up to something around 70% to see how that looks. Notice that we've got a lot more light coming into the darker areas. That works much better right there. Next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and select our blend steps, and let's change our blend steps from 25 to 50. That allows the blend from light to dark to be a lot smoother. One more thing I'm going to do is let's go ahead and change the shading color from black to a really dark blue. The reason I do this is because most of my surface is blue, and that shading will work a little bit better because we've got a lot of color bounce. Here's how we do that. We're going to select Custom, and then let's go ahead and click on our custom color, and let's change that color to blue, and then let's take it all the way to a dark blue, about just like that. That'll work just fine. Let's go ahead and click OK. And notice what our shape looks like now. Let's go ahead and select OK. Let's deselect our shape. Let's go ahead and close our appearance window as well. And note our shape looks really good. However, there's a couple things that we need to change. The first, we want to see our cup through our shape. The way we do that is we're going to select our shape, and let's change the color mode. We'll select our transparency window one more time, and let's change our transparency from normal to multiply. Notice right away that darkens our shape just a little bit, but you can see our cup underneath our shape. That looks good. Let's change the opacity from 100% to 90%. Now, if you get red just like that, all you need to do, that's common, go back to normal, and then go back to multiply. Let's go ahead and close that window. Let's deselect our shape. That looks so much better. Worth noticing is that our lines on our shape are simply too sharp. The reason it doesn't work is because our eyes or our vision is simply not perfect, and neither is the focus on the cup. That's just a real life thing. How do we fix that? Piece of cake. All we need to do is let's go ahead and select our shape one more time. Let's go to Effect. Let's select Blur, and let's select Gaussian Blur. All we need to do is change the blur values. You notice I come in at 3. That might be a little bit heavy. If we drag it up even further, you can see what happens to our shape. It blurs even more. On the other end, if we drag it down to 2.1, notice how sharp our shape becomes. We're better off with just a little bit of blur. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, and I'm going to add 2 pixels. Go ahead and select OK. Our shape looks so much better and so much more real. Now, with that being said, we're looking good and we are done. All right, I take that back. We've got one more thing to do, and that is exporting our shape. I'll show you the easy way to do it. With our selection tool selected, let's go ahead and select our shape. We'll hold our shift key and select our image as well. Once we've got that, let's right click on our shape and let's select export selection. Now we're presented with a number of options right here. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to select is our export to folder. All I need to do is select that folder and then search for the location that I want to export to. In this case, I'm selecting Documents, Export, Test. The next thing I want to do is select Open Location after export. That gives me a chance to preview what I'm looking at. Now, I don't need to create any subfolders, so I'll ignore that. And now let's go under Formats. Now we can select any number of formats from 1 times our shape. That's going to deliver the shape at the exact size that we've got it. Remember, our artboard is 1000 points, so our shape that we'll export would be around 950 points or pixels. At 2 times, we double that to about 1900 points or pixels. Now, in this case, however, I'm going to select width because I'd rather have an exact width. All I need to do is enter it right here. Notice that I'm selecting 1000 pixels. That works perfect. That's an easy size to send to a client for review. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the format. JPEG is a standard format, so is PNG. In this case, however, I'm going to select JPEG 100 because that's the most portable and highest quality format for email. So I'll select that. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm free to add different scale formats. However, in this case, all I'm going to do is select Export Asset, wait for Illustrator to do its work, and notice that the export folder opens in front of me. Notice again that our exported file is right there. Now you're ready to send it out, preview, or whatever. And with that, let me go ahead and close this window. We are done. Nice job. Now here's a quick disclaimer. When working with a shape that isn't a perfect cylinder and perhaps is even a little bit more conical, this might not work all that well. With that in mind, be really careful about the type of image that you choose. Once done, take a critical look at it and you should be good to go. Don't have much else to say. Like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Peace.